Welcome to the Mindset Architect Podcast, where it's all about creating the life you want, the business you want, and making a real difference. Join us in unlocking the code to true success. And now your host, Tony Caliendo, Master Coach with Rethink Coaching.
Welcome to the Mindset Architect Podcast, episode number 144. I'm Tony Caliendo, author of Less Over More and executive coach here at Rethink Coaching. As always, I want to start by thanking you for sharing your time with me. Time truly is our greatest asset, and the fact that you're willing to share your time with me truly does mean a great deal. So welcome to the episode. Today, we're going to talk about a word that people generally view as a great thing, and I'm going to ask you to think a little differently about it today. And I want us to look at it as it's potentially an addiction that we're disguising as being ultimately positive and impactful when it could be potentially harming you. And that is the addiction about potential, the word itself. And number one thing I want you to think about, and I'm just going to invite you to think differently about potential today because there are a lot of great things with it if we reframe it and keep it in the light and the lane of moving us forward in a healthy way. But the number one thing I want you to think about is how potential can actually become a prison. You know, potential sounds really positive, right? It sounds motivating. It sounds inspiring. Yet many of us, high performers or those striving to be a high performer, potential quietly becomes this little prison cell that maybe we've decorated and make look really, really pretty and refer to it as ambition. And where I think this has started, it happened long ago that we were praised for potential in our youth, right? In our younger days. And we were praised for that potential before we've ever been praised for presence, peace, or fulfillment. I know for me, when I was a kid, school was just not really where I excelled. And it wasn't because I'm not intelligent. It just the confines, the restrictions, the following somebody else's agenda just didn't land with me. So I think always from a very young age, I was meant to be an entrepreneur. Yet I can remember when my mom and occasionally if my dad made it to the parent-teacher conferences, my mom would come home and always tell me, every teacher said the same thing about you. You have so much potential if you just apply yourself. You can do incredible things. You're capable of so much more than what you're doing. Those were really common themes of what was shared with my parents about me. And while that might sound harmless, until your relationship with yourself becomes contingent on consistently proving it. Think about that. Being told as a kid that you've got so much potential really is saying you're not doing what you need to be doing now. And what you're doing now isn't important. What you're doing now isn't making a difference. What you're doing now isn't the right thing. And that can land and weigh really, really heavily on you because it's not always about what is possible. It should be about what is present. What are you doing really well now in the moment? And that reference to you have so much potential, you could do so much more, can really create subtle inability to fulfill your actual life, to actually make you feel good about who you are and what you're currently doing. Because you start to measure yourself against an unrealized self, right? Potential is about something that doesn't exist yet, something that is in your future, not about what you're currently doing now. So you do start to measure yourself around this unrealized self, this person that doesn't quite exist yet, or this future that doesn't exist yet. Because again, it's teaching you what you're currently doing isn't what you should be doing or could be doing. And this is what you want to do. You want to measure yourself against your values, right? Against what fulfills you, against what you would like to do, and acknowledge what you're currently doing. Because when you don't, and you're constantly looking at the potential you're missing out on, that creates a lot of pressure. That creates a ton of pressure on you because potential has no finish line. Think about it. Every time we achieve something, there's more. We could do more. There's potentially more for us in the future. And when potential doesn't have a finish line, the pressure it creates can be immense, right? Think about it. You can always make more money. You could always scale bigger. You can always become fitter, less body fat, more muscle, whatever it is, run 5 miles instead of 3. There's always more. And so potential tends to not have a finish line, and that target keeps moving on you, or it can. Again, when we're only focused on potential and not about present. So you may begin living with the quiet belief that you're not enough yet. And that is a lot to take on. Again, I think this happens to us in our youth, and it might be one of those things that we just carry forward as normal because it becomes habit or we become habitualized to it. That when you talk about you have so much more potential than what you're currently doing, it really can make you feel like what you're doing or you as a person is just not enough. That to me is one of the greatest thieves of joy in our life is when you start thinking that you're not enough. When in all actuality, what you're currently doing is probably phenomenal, but we take our eye off of it and look to the future. So at what point does pursuing your potential stop inspiring your life and start preventing you from actually living it? I'm going to say that again. At what point does pursuing your potential stop inspiring your life and start preventing you from living it? The second thing I want to talk about is when growth stops feeling like growth. Now, don't get me wrong, growth is healthy. I love being in a constant state of growth. I think it is really good for us. However, our modern culture has quietly turned growth into a lifestyle of constant self-correction. Again, leading us to believe what we're doing is not right, what we're doing is not enough. And so growth can stop feeling like growth. Part of it is there's a difference between intentional evolution, so being intentional about how we're growing, versus compulsive optimization. We are constantly being really forced to compare ourselves to other people in the current world we live in with access to social media. And we have access to people outside of our circle, outside of our city, outside of our state, outside of our country. There's a lot going on that we can compare ourselves to, and it can create this need to be compulsive about doing something that is viewed as growth, and you don't give it a whole lot of thought. Like, is this the right growth for me? Is this the right time for me to be experiencing this growth? Because intentional growth or intentional evolution will expand your life. The other, that unintentional, that compulsive drive towards growth for the sake of keeping up with others, that actually can cause exhaustion. And that's where growth can stop feeling like growth. And it can really feel like something very, very unhealthy. When we really are constantly in a phase of growth for the sake of keeping up, it really sends a message to you that who you are today is insufficient. And that changes everything around growth and the healthy part of growth. Because now growth isn't necessarily fueled by your inspiration, it's fueled by your inadequacy. Again, when we're comparing ourselves to everybody else outside of the city state, bigger playing field to compare ourselves to, through social media, through the news, through YouTube, through everything, we tend to look at growth as very competitive versus inspiring. And that really can be challenging. Growth fueled by curiosity is very energizing and very healthy. Growth fueled by self-rejection or comparison feels relentless. You may notice that you hit goals and you immediately move the goalpost. We've talked about this before. I'm one of those people that, I hit the goal and it's like, great, what's next? Versus pausing and just celebrating that you hit a goal. And it can be a little goal. It could be a daily goal, an hourly goal, a weekly goal, whatever you want it to be. We tend to hit a goal because when growth is not healthy, we want to quickly move on to the next thing. Continue moving forward. We got to keep up. We got to surpass. We have to do more because we have all this potential. You achieve something meaningful, yet you don't allow yourself to really sit with it and enjoy it. This is something that I have to work on constantly, because on this journey that I'm on right now with my book release in August, That has been the goalpost for a long time, and everything else has just been a task to get done. And it was my publishing agent who had a conversation with me, and he said, "Did you stop and go celebrate that you got the manuscript done? Did you stop and celebrate when the final cover was sent to you and you had huge impact on what it's going to look like? Did you enjoy these mile markers along the way?" And if I'm honest with myself, I was more focused on the August deadline, drop date, if you will, when it's going to be physically available, because I'm so committed and connected to the impact that I get to make in the world. But sadly, I've missed some really incredible moments along the way. So you really have to be intentional about celebrating those growth moments and know that it's not just something you want to check off your list. You want to spend a moment enjoying it and celebrating it. Constant growth for the sake of competition or keeping up or surpassing versus doing it because it's curious, it feels good, it's the right time, it's the right next best thing for you is really the classic wrong more disguised as self-development. It's not always about just growth for the sake of growth. We have to keep it in its appropriate form. So think about that. Number 3, the cost of living in the future. There's a huge pitfall, right, to living in the future, right? The potential pulls our attentions towards what could be, which is okay. Yet if we're not careful, it steals our relationship with what already is. Many high achievers live inside delayed life agreements. This is very similar to destination addiction, right? And we've talked about this before, and we've talked about it a little bit. If you haven't heard about it, though, this is where we're living in the future. I'll be happy when. So for me, I'll be happy when I can hand a physical copy of my book to somebody on August 25th. But until then, I'm just doing what I need to do. It's that destination addiction versus the manuscript was completed. The manuscript was submitted. The publishing house liked it. The publishing house helped me edit it. All of these things along the way that I should be celebrating: the final manuscript, the final copy, the interior design. All of those things were ignored because in my mind, I wasn't going to be happy until I was a legitimate author with a book that I could hold in my hands versus something that was coming. So really think about, there is a cost to living in the future. And my understanding and the way I look at it is that cost of living in the future is robbing you of any enjoyment you should be having right now with everything that you've done, including your failures, because we're learning, we're always learning. So really treat fulfillment like a future reward, and yet don't forget about being in the present and celebrating and acknowledging, because when we don't do that, we're going to experience burnout. We might experience health issues from the pure stress we're putting on ourselves, and that hormonal release versus experiencing joy, experiencing happiness, which releases different hormones that makes us feel good. We might feel empty rather than achieved. Really, really pay attention. I built the thing, yet I forgot to live while building it. I think that's really a dangerous thing that a lot of us as entrepreneurs do because we're so future focused and we're so looking at the potential of what could be, that we're not paying attention to what we're currently doing. This is honestly one of my personal biggest challenges, and it might be yours. You know that old saying, right? Stop and smell the roses. I have to agree with that. This is one of those moments where you just need to stop and enjoy the present. Today we were having breakfast. So in Santa Fe, patios really don't open until May 15th because you're always at risk of a little ass laugh from Mother Nature that's going to give you a blast of snow or some winter weather. And we had breakfast outside on a patio, one of our favorite patios here. And when we're here, we always make an intention to visit it. And the flowers were gorgeous. They had pots and plants and ivies, and it was just really a beautiful display of color. And there was a moment where I wanted to stop and take it in. I wanted to really pay attention to it and capture some pictures in my mind because I wanted to be in the present and not just walk by. So I love that saying, right? Stop and smell the roses. Stop and celebrate what you're doing on the journey to your future versus putting everything that you're looking forward to in the future, and everything along the way does not matter. Really, really important. Number 4 is potential and the identity trap. This is very real. Sometimes our attachment to potential has less to do with growth and more to do with protection. Potential can be emotionally safer than reality because as long as something remains possible, it hasn't yet been tested. So this is a really interesting thing that I find out a lot about some of the clients that I meet or people that I'm speaking to when I'm delivering keynotes is it's easier to not start something because if you start it and fail, you own it. If it's just an idea about what's possible, but we never start it, we don't view that as failure because we didn't fail, right? We didn't take action and fail. So there's this oddity of, well, it's possible. And that feels really, really good versus it's possible. This is what I must do to get there. I implement and fail. So sometimes living in the possibility is really a form of protection. It's a fantasy. It's all the things that could be. There is no risk when you create the future through possibility. None, because you're not risking failure. It's that old saying, right? Be, do, have. It's living in the have. You're not taking into consideration what you must do and who you must become, the whole journey there. It's very safe to live in your potential. So take a moment to think about that, right? Potential feels clean, untouched, protected from failure, protected from judgment, protected from disappointment of ourselves and maybe others. Yet once you commit to taking action about your potential or that future growth, then it gets real. Then it becomes about results. It comes about feedback, whether it's positive feedback or where we may have stubbed our toe and failed. All of the imperfections and the things we didn't plan on coming up that come up enter the picture. Potential asks very little of us. Reality asks everything. So there is a way to hide in the potential, which can keep you from moving forward. It's always just a fantasy. So some people become deeply attached to being seen as someone with enormous potential rather than risking becoming someone imperfectly in motion. I will tell you, I would rather coach somebody who comes to the call and has failed than to coach someone who tells me, I ran out of time. I didn't have time to do it. You're hiding. The person who jumped in and attempted to do something to live into their future, to live into the growth and failed, I have more respect for than someone who did nothing because they're hiding behind the potential. Potential preserves identity. Reality will test it. Those two things are really important. Their potential becomes another form of the wrong more. It's all about more ideas, more possibility, more preparation, more readiness, and less about commitment, embodiment, and actual living. So pay attention that you're not hiding behind the potential versus jumping in and making it happen and taking the risk. Number 5 is the difference between expansion and enough. So I don't want you to think that this is me telling you to not push yourself to do more. Yet there is an unhealthy attachment to things never being enough. There's a difference between expansion and enough. You don't have to choose between ambition and contentment. Yet many people have been conditioned to believe that you do. So think about this. Expansion to me is very healthy. You're expanding. You're doing things. Enough is different. Like, when is it enough? Have you achieved enough? High achievers often fear the concept of enough because they think it sounds like, oh, I've settled. I've become complacent. I've given up. I've surrendered, right? Yet that is not what it has to be. Really, it is not about your lack of desire for growth. It's about an unhealthy attachment to more. It's about an unhealthy attachment to the wrong more. So think about expansion as being very healthy. You're expanding what is possible for you. You're expanding your bandwidth or what you can do. And it's not just about, oh my gosh, that's enough and I'm done. Enough has a place in life and you get to decide what that is. Some of my friends are choosing to retire, They've achieved a massive level of success, both professionally and financially, and they've reached a point of enough. Some of us are expanding, and it's no judgment, no comparison. Yet for me, I am now starting this new journey, author and keynote, still coaching, yet that's expansion. It's not just about I've reached a limit of enough. And I think some of us are just wired differently and we will constantly be expanding. Yet you may get to the point where it's enough in an area. It's enough of income. It's enough. You have to decide that and then choose, where do I still wish to expand? Really, really important. Number 6 is just have a healthy relationship with potential. I think potential is a great thing when it's framed correctly. It was not healthy for me to hear my parents come home and say, your teachers think you have so much more potential. My parents did not do it in a way to make me feel bad. Teachers did not do it in a way to make me feel bad. Yet it did land as, what I'm doing doesn't matter. They don't see the value that I'm bringing. They don't see that I'm working really hard to get the C or the B. All they're seeing is that I could be an A student if I just applied myself more. And that really couldn't have been further from the truth. I had limits as to what I could do in terms of success. However, we can have a healthy relationship with potential, because potential is not the problem. Our attachment to it is what can create problem. So think about it, the goal of your potential, right? We want to keep in mind that we have ambition to do more, and that's okay. We just have to make sure it's the right more. When we're talking about our potential, we really need to step back and say, is it in alignment with me and what's important to me and my values and the right more activities? Or am I just stacking more for the sake of what could be? So I go back to the example of me as a student. I think I had a pretty healthy balance. Others probably think I didn't, of enjoying life and school. Might have been heavier weighted towards enjoying life, if I'm honest. However, it worked for me. And what they would like to have seen is me do more studying, more buckling down, less time enjoying life. To me, that was the wrong more. If I would have become that person, I would have been really, really miserable. So for me, the potential should have been to have the balance of life and success. That to me is the right potential. So pay attention to what your healthy definition of your future potential can be. It's a huge difference. Potential becomes powerful when it shifts from your measurement of worth to a direction for growth. I'm going to say that again. Potential becomes powerful when it shifts from a measurement of your worth to a direction for growth. That is a significant difference. One creates pressure, the other creates possibility. A healthier relationship with potential sounds more like I can pursue growth without withholding approval for myself today. I can build more without making my happiness dependent upon my arrival. I can honor where I'm headed without abandoning where I am. Again, potential becomes powerful when it shifts from solely a measurement of your worth to a direction for your growth. Pay attention to the difference. I think the message that I really want you to leave today's episode with is that potential can be healthy if we look at it in a way that let's enjoy the journey. Let's enjoy and honor what we did and accomplished today. Because think about this, what I did today was my potential of my past. I had this potential, this future that I wanted to achieve. And I achieved it. And then we immediately moved the target again because we're moving it towards this huge goal in the future. What we should be doing is celebrating our potential moments along the way. I achieved that level of potential. I am worth it. I am not just basing it on this goal that I haven't hit yet. So potential is powerful when it's framed in the right way, dangerous when it is used as strictly a measurement of your worth. So I want you to think about potential differently as you move forward. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to me. I love potential. I think all of us have amazing potential, but my definition of what should be your potential is not your definition. Find what works for you. Honor the journey. Honor where you are. Do not allow it to be your definition of worth. Look at it as your signal for growth. All right, team, go make it a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you must come check out the Mindset Architect Group Coaching Program. It's our monthly program where we explore the power of your mindset, help you identify what you truly want in business and life, and then help you reach those goals. Come check us out at rethinkcoaching.com/group-program. That's rethinkcoaching.com/group-program. We'll see you there.